You've finally done it. After months of discipline, skipping dinners out, resisting impulse purchases, watching your account creep upward dollar by dollar, you hit $5,000 in savings. You expected fireworks, some kind of mental transformation, maybe that rush you feel when something genuinely changes in your life. Instead, you feel nothing, maybe even disappointed. You look at that number and think, is this it? All that sacrifice for what feels like barely enough to cover a few months of rent? The emptiness you're experiencing isn't a personal failure. It's your brain doing exactly what evolution designed it to do, and understanding why reveals something crucial about how wealth actually builds. Here's what's happening inside your head. When you saved your first $100, it felt massive, a genuine accomplishment. You could almost feel the dopamine hit every time you checked your balance. By the time you crossed 1,000, you were riding high, imagining what came next. But somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000, each additional 100 started feeling less significant. Same effort, same discipline, progressively duller emotional response. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. Your brain treats positive changes as the new baseline, turning what once brought joy into background noise. In 1978, researchers studied lottery winners and discovered something shocking. After the initial euphoria faded, these people weren't any happier than before they won. They'd adapted. The $1 million became normal, and suddenly they needed even more to feel that spark again. Your $5,000 triggered the same mechanism. The first 1,000 moved you from zero to something, security where there was vulnerability. The fifth 1,000? It moved you from 4,000 to slightly more than 4,000, objectively identical value, subjectively completely different experience. But there's a deeper reason this milestone feels hollow, one that has nothing to do with psychology and everything to do with cold mathematics. $5,000 sits in this brutal middle ground where you've done real work but haven't yet reached the threshold where money starts working for you in ways you can actually feel. Yes. Think about what $5,000 actually represents for most people. Financial experts recommend 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved for emergencies. If your monthly expenses run around $3,000, which is fairly typical, you've got maybe 6 weeks of breathing room. You've climbed part way up the hill, but you can still see the peak towering above you. The gap between what you've achieved and actual financial security remains uncomfortably visible. This is where most people make a critical mistake. They interpret this hollow feeling as evidence that saving doesn't work, that the entire premise is flawed. Why keep sacrificing if the destination feels this underwhelming? Some blow the money on something tangible, at least getting the dopamine hit of consumption. Others just lose momentum, letting their discipline slip because the reward doesn't match the effort. What they're missing is that $5,000 isn't supposed to feel like wealth. It's not the destination, it's the foundation for something that hasn't started happening yet. Consider how your brain evaluates value. Economists identified this pattern centuries ago. Jeremy Bentham noticed that wealth and happiness don't scale proportionally. The first $100 you earn when you have nothing, life-changing. It means food, shelter, survival. The $101, nice, but nowhere near as impactful. Each additional unit of wealth provides progressively less satisfaction, a principle so consistent they built economic theory around it. Your journey from 0 to 1,000 felt monumental because it represented crossing from nothing into something. 1,000 to 2,000 still carried weight. By 4,000 to 5,000, you're experiencing what Alfred Marshall described over a century ago. 3 bites of candy taste better than 2, but the 20th bite barely registers compared to the 19th. $5,000 is objectively 5 times more valuable than 1,000, but it doesn't feel 5 times better. It might only feel 20 or 30% better because of how your utility curves work. Your brain isn't broken. It's functioning exactly as designed, which is precisely the problem when you're trying to build wealth. The real question isn't why 5,000 feels like nothing. It's what happens next, when that seemingly insignificant number transforms into something that actually changes how money works in your life. Because there's a point where everything shifts, where your money stops just sitting there and starts multiplying in ways that your brain can't ignore. That transformation happens somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000, depending on your situation. Suddenly, your investment returns aren't just theoretical numbers on a screen. They're actual money you can see accumulating each month. An 8% return on $20,000 generates about $1,300 annually. That's real cash appearing in your account without additional effort from you. Your brain finally registers what compound interest actually means, not as an abstract concept from a finance book, but as tangible proof that your money has started working independently. The shift isn't gradual. It hits all at once when you check your account and realize last month's growth exceeded what you used to save in 3 months of grinding discipline. This is why understanding 5,000 as a milestone requires looking forward, not at the present moment. You're not supposed to feel rich yet. You're building the launching pad for exponential growth that your brain can't properly conceptualize until it's already happening. What makes this particularly brutal is how the timeline works. If you invest $10,000 today at an average 8% return, you'll have about $21,000 in 10 years. Decent, but not exactly thrilling. Leave it for 20 years. 46,000, 30 years. 100,000, 40 years, 217,000. Same initial investment, same hands-off approach. Wildly different outcomes based purely on time. Your 5,000 today could become 10,000 in 9 years, or it could become over 25,000 in 20 years. The money is identical, but the context completely changes its value. Meanwhile, your friend who waits 5 years to start saving, they'll need to contribute significantly more each month to catch up to where you'll be, and they'll still end up behind because they missed those crucial early compounding years. Every dollar you invest in your 20s has roughly 10 times more growth potential than a dollar invested in your 40s. Not because the returns are different, but because time amplifies everything. $5,000 at age 25 becomes the foundation for wealth that feels impossible to build at age 45. So when you stare at that 5,000 and feel nothing, remember you're experiencing exactly what you're supposed to feel. Your brain hasn't adapted to exponential thinking because humans evolved in linear environments. We understand that 2 apples plus 2 apples equals 4 apples. We don't intuitively grasp that $2 growing at 8% becomes different amounts depending on whether we wait 10, 20, or 30 years. The satisfaction you're seeking exists, but it lives in the future. Not the distant retirement future either. Within a few years of consistent saving and investing, you'll hit points where your money generates more in a month than you used to save in a quarter. That's when everything clicks emotionally, when the abstract mathematics transforms into visceral understanding. Until then, 5,000 feels like nothing because it is nothing compared to where you're headed. It's the first shovelful of dirt when you're building a mountain. Objectively necessary, subjectively underwhelming. What separates people who build wealth from those who stay stuck isn't superior intelligence or special opportunities. It's tolerating this exact feeling without abandoning the process. Most people interpret the hollow sensation as failure and either spend the money or stop contributing. They never reach the threshold where compound interest becomes perceptible. You're in the grind phase where discipline matters more than results, where showing up consistently counts more than feeling motivated, where understanding the mathematics has to carry you through the emotional drought. $5,000 isn't the destination. It's not even base camp. It's you proving you can do what most people can't, which is delay gratification long enough for exponential growth to take over. Once that happens, wealth building shifts from pushing a boulder uphill to maintaining momentum as it rolls forward on its own. The number feels like nothing because your brain measures satisfaction in immediate terms while wealth building operates on delayed timelines. That gap between effort and reward is where most people quit. Push through it, and you'll look back wondering why you ever doubted whether the process worked. Your future self already knows 5,000 was everything. They're standing on the foundation you're building right now, watching compound interest do what mathematics promised it would do all along. You've got the foundation. Now stop checking your balance expecting to feel different and start trusting the mathematics you can't see yet. That 5,000 isn't supposed to satisfy you today. It's supposed to become something you can't build later. The compound interest your 40-year-old self will desperately wish they'd started accumulating right now.